Hello, everyone. Hey, 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 hey. How is everyone? Oh God, there's balloons.
No,
Do
those
you
are
know that?
jack-o'-lanterns.
Yeah. Do you know that just reminds me that I'll need to do something with balloons because I'm doing a paranormal Halloween countdown. Because I love Halloween. Don't think I'll be doing it for Christmas. Fuck Christmas. Eh, I don't really like Christmas, so no. Hi, Ashley, Louise. How you doing? Welcome. So, how is everyone? How's your week been, everyone?
It's been busy, definitely. I know it has been for the last couple of days.
Did you know go and see The Exorcist?
Yeah, I went to go see the Exorcist at the theater, which so it's funny you showed that, Wayne. You know, they had the shirt. I went to go see it for the 50th anniversary of that of for the 50th anniversary, and my God, when you see it in the theater, and I went to go see it with Tom McNicholas, and he was absolutely right about this. It is so much different in the theater. It's a very different experience. I think the one thing that really got me when I saw it was the sound. The sound was so much different. It
Do,
still was pretty scary too.
I
do you
think
know?
that's what keeps the pull to the theatres. When you watch a film in a movie theatre, the sound quality is so much better, and because you've got a bigger picture as well, you can sort of get more into it. I mean, it's like. I mean, I love Star Wars, so when all the Star Wars films came out in the theatre, I went to go and see them. And when you compare it to watching on a TV at home, you have literally got to have the world's best sound system set up in your living room to get the same appreciation out of it than you do in a theatre.
Right.
Shit. I
So
don't mean shit,
Really?
literally. I've just accidentally posted to a vent group.
yeah, I mean, like I said, but see, and you're absolutely right about that, way. I mean, unless we had a better sound system, I don't think I was going to be able to hear that anywhere else. So, you know, we definitely got our money's worth when we went to go see The Exorcist in the theater. And like I said, it was you hear stuff that you would know you could
Take
you would
15.
one of the things I think you would notice is you would hear certain things that you normally would never be able to hear on a normal television monitor and screen. So again, I think that's what kind of made it a lot scary. That's for sure. And also, it was like it really was feeling like going back in time. I mean, for a few seconds, I thought it was in 1973 when it first came out. So it's it was quite an
Don't,
experience to remember.
I
don't,
think the weird part about The Exorcist, the only reason why I got into The Exorcist was because of the music.
Yeah, Tubular
yeah,
Bells.
oh yeah.
Mike Oldfield's Tubular Bells, you just cannot beat it. And I've been a fan of Mike Oldfield's ever since. And every time he's brought out a new album, I've been one of the first people to buy it. I went to Edinburgh and saw him in concert there when he released Tubular Bells 2.
Wow.
So all of the Exorcists have all sort of been quite pivotal for me to go and see simply because of Tubular Bells.
Well, not to
Mhm.
mention, I mean, it was also good timing and you know what? I actually have that song because Brad Webb, you know, who does Crack Skull Paranormal, because he makes his own paranormal tools, including his own music boxes. And he asked me if I wanted to get a music box. You know, like he was going to make one for me, and he requested saying, "Well, what music do you want in it?" Jeremy, on the other hand, already got his music box, and he requested the Halloween theme song from the film. But for me, it was undoubtedly Tubular Bells.
That piano
Well,
sequence is definitely very haunting. And I've said that I want it for my funeral.
oh my God.
Because
But
that's
he's
my
like,
sense of
like,
humour. I want that playing as they bring my coffin down.
well, and you know, it was perfect timing seeing the new one. I mean, the original, because this is just a few days before the new one comes out, which I heard it's not only is it a sequel to the original, I think it is also to the third. They say it also supposedly ignores the second one because the third and this one, they're probably going to. This new one, I think, is definitely going to be a much more worthier sequel than the Heretic one. Although, like I said, the third one was really
sorry,
So yeah, you'll be
He's
great.
Rose. He's Rose. Christine! Long time no see. Where you been hiding? Hey Mort, hey Anthony, hey Kerry, hey Eric, hey Robert. My God,
Oh.
draw breath here. Unless you like black and white movies, true. Hi Rita. Eric, I was put in 1973.
So funny enough, just
Hey Steve!
real quick, what Anthony just said, saying unless you like black and white movies, you know, there is actually this new idea that people have had suggested when it comes to the movie The Exorcist. They're actually considering there's websites about it that some people should watch the film in black and white, you know, like just turn down the color on your screen and make it a black and white screen, because they say too that's just as creepy as an experience in black and white. So that's gonna be my next test when I see this film, is when I'm gonna turn down the color so I can watch it in black and white to get an idea of what it looks like under the black and white screen, if you will.
And in the dark.
Well,
in the dark too, yes.
Look at Eric, that's what your skull is. I've got your skull quite happily waiting now to turn it the right way so that the face looks like it's facing. There's the skull that Eric made me. I got it the other day, so I was quite in my element. It looks like me. I've looked at the facial recognition. It does look a lot like me. Not doing so good listening to the trans. He's just an arsehole, Sarah Louise. I wouldn't even let him.
Yeah, Sarah, you shouldn't have even bothered listening to him. The bloke's
Who
an
is this
idiot.
guy?
He's
basically a Britain. He's a fucking fanny.
Oh,
But they
really?
went. Been doing lots of.
We didn't elect him in. He gained power because the previous prime minister quit.
Oh.
Been doing loads of late at work. That's just not good enough, Christine. Tell your boss I'll phone up and say it's just not good enough. You need to tune into this show on a Thursday and a Friday. Rita says, Wayne, I like your shirt.
Thanks, Rita.
You can't be a horror film in the dark. Definitely. So tonight, guys, it was somebody that had suggested we do this. I think it was Cliff had suggested to do Mary Bell. Now, this one is it's
quite unusual to begin with. It's also kind of scary too.
It is, because she's an English woman who is a juvenile killer. She's Britain's youngest female killer. And what's very standoutish about this one is that, that she committed her first killing when she was just 10 years old. She informed her victims that they had sore throats, which she would massage before she actually put the hands around their throat and started strangling them. She was diagnosed with psycho. I can't even say the word, but I know what I'm trying to say. Basically, she's a psycho. No, she is 66 years old just now. She was released in 1980. She's known as the Tyneside Strangler. Now, what really, really scares me about this one as well was how very cold she was. And if my mind serves me right in this case, did she not go to the victims' doors in the coffin when they were lying in the coffin and ask to see them? She had her accomplice in at least one of the murders, and that was a 13-year-old named Norma Joyce Bell, which is no relation, by the way, just like to point that out.
Just same name, but no relation whatsoever.
Yeah, just the same second name, but no relation. And she was acquitted of all charges. She was actually diagnosed with psychopathic personality disorder. That's what it is. I couldn't get my tongue around that.
Alison.
And that was prior to her trial. Hi, Alison. How you doing? Her early life seems to be that her mother was actually local known prostitute who was obviously absent from the family home and frequently travelling to Glasgow to work. And she just simply left her children in the care of their father. That's if he was actually there. Mary was her second child born. Mary believed that her father... Hey, Nigel! Mary believed her father to be William Billy Bell, a violent alcoholic. He was... however, she was away when William Bell actually came into her life. So it's not known who her father is.
Yeah.
So what I learned about Mary was that she was an unwanted and neglected child, according to her aunt. And I'm not saying it comes down to the nature and nurture debate. And by sounds of it, Mary Bell had a bit of both.
Yeah, she did.
It was nature, because as I just said, she got diagnosed with psychopathic tendencies. But then you look at the life she had as well. I'm not saying that's right for what she did to
No.
our victims, no in any way. But if you look at it in a nature nurture kind of way, but apparently she, both at home and school, she was showing signs of disturbing and unpredictable behaviour. Things like bedwetting, she was mood swings, she was fighting with other children, it didn't matter whether it was boys or girls. And she attempted to actually strangle and suffocate her own classmates at one point on several occasions. On one occasion, she's attempted to block the trachea of a young girl with sand. You know, she has shown very, really violent behaviour to other children. And she spent a lot of time with this Norma Joyce Bell. And again, I just want to point out there's no relation between the two of them. Because obviously these people are still alive.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, you know, I get it. Like, you know, that Mary Bell did have a troubled upbringing, you know, and that may have contributed to some of that behavior. However, that's not always, and you kind of have to look again really into these killers' backgrounds to really get details. You know, part of it may have been a bad upbringing, and one thing for sure is anyone would say, you know, I'm sorry that she went through that. It must have been absolutely horrible for her. But when she started exhibiting this antisocial behavior and violent behavior towards other kids,
something should have been done.
Something should have been done. And for the most part, like you just said, Lois, it was kind of more a natural effect or something. So I think the scariest part would be is that even if she didn't have this troubled upbringing, you know, the lifestyle may have been different, but I think deep in her mind, she would have still been the same kind of person, because some of it was brought up naturally, not just from the abuse that she went through.
Yeah, because I mean, Lois couldn't say it, but she was diagnosed with psychopathic personality disorder.
Yes.
And basically what that then does is the condition itself is characterized by persistent antisocial behavior, impaired empathy and remorse, and bold, disinhibited and egotistical traits. So you could look at her past, the previous years and the abuse that she received, and it could have been like it's just said on there, that trauma that she went through pushed her over the edge with the psychopathic personality disorder. You know, there's no excuse for what she done, but her parents then should have stepped in when they saw these traits coming through, and should have gone, we need to do something about this, and it could have been avoided.
Very much. I have a photo that I'm just going to present quickly because I know some people have never heard of Mary. It's nothing graphic or anything, but this is Lois, you're probably seeing this picture right now since you're reading this information, but this is a school picture of her taken back in 1967 or 68.
Oh my God.
And I got to admit, it may look like a normal, innocent school photo, just like any other. But honestly, to me, in my opinion, and I'm not saying it because it's a black and white picture, that is probably one of the creepiest pictures I've ever seen of Mary Bell.
Mm.
Do you know, funny enough, I was actually going to put that picture up, but then I thought it was a bit much. When I looked at the pictures in Mary Bell, the problem you have, right, is, you know, you can't, the problem you've got is with children is that, and people will say this, is that you can't call them evil, right? You don't know that's the route that they're going. And you look at other child killers, right? I really want to do the subject, but I don't, and it's James Bulger's subject.
Yeah.
I don't really want to touch it within 10 miles, because it's one of those ones that is so sad, it's unreal.
Yeah.
There's another example of child killers. And the problem you've got now is that potentially John Venables might be let out by
Really?
November.
Seriously?
He's up on parole in November. I seen it the other day, actually.
Yeah,
Now,
I mean, just real quick, I'm just going to say, I don't believe it. I can't believe they're letting this guy out.
well, he's up for parole in November, but there's a good chance that he could be let out. But then they're trying to change the law over here where life is life. And it just shouldn't be. Hi, Ghost Squad Scotland Network.
Yeah, I mean, that
What's that?
That was one of the things me and... Oh, sorry.
No, you go, love. That's what I'm saying.
That was one of the things that me and Nick were talking about last week, where, you know, in certain states in America, the death penalty still exists. Other places, they frown upon it. And over here, we only have one death sentence, and that is for an act of treason during war, and that tends to be for serving personnel only. So it's difficult over here because we see it that if you take someone's life, you should then commit your life in other ways. So whether it's a death sentence or whether it's life means life in prison. But in Mary's case, she got away with the lighter sentence because of the diagnosis. She got away with the smallest sentence possible, and as a result was released in 1980. So she's been able to carry on with her life because she committed the murders as a child, comes out of prison as a young adult, and is able to get on with her life under the guise of somebody else.
Yeah, that was even back in 1968 when this murder occurred. I mean, and I also found out it was not only just the diagnosis that she had, but put it this way, and correct me if I'm wrong, you know, even if the death penalty fully existed in the UK in 1968, it just seemed like the jury, from what I read, it's like, no, even if they had it, it was quite obvious that nobody chose the death penalty because the jury. I think the jury must have also thought that she was just too young. Understandably, she was only she was only 10 years old. So what could you do at that time?
Cliff says, unfortunately for Mary Bell, her mother Betty. See if my voice goes during these comments tonight. I'm going to scream. Her mother Betty was a terrible mother. Betty suffered from a mental disorder that triggered her to injure her child shortly after birth. Betty tried to throw her daughter away and was desperate to hand her off to relatives, which is a sad reality. It really is.
She herself, Betty, was also not only just a terrible mother, she was also still really young herself. She was only 17 years old when she had Mary.
That's the problem. So when we come to the first one, which was on the 11th of May 1968, a 3-year-old boy was discovered wandering dazed and bleeding in the vicinity of St Margaret's Road, Scotswood. The child later informed police he had been playing with Mary Bell and Norma Bell, and they took him to a air raid shelter which is disused, which he had been pushed 7 foot from the roof to the ground, which inflicted a self-lecture in his head. He was unsure of which girls had actually pushed him. That evening, both girls were interviewed, denied any knowledge, claiming they had simply discovered the boy bleeding heavily from a head wound after he'd fallen. Mary denied any knowledge of this. However, Norma admitted that Mary had tried to throttle each of the girls, stating, Mary went to one of the girls and said, what happens if you choke somebody? Do they die? Then Mary put both hands round the girl's throat and squeezed. The girl started to go purple. I told Mary to stop, but she wouldn't. Then she put her hands around Pauline's throat and she started going purple as well. Another girl, Susan, came up and Mary did the same as her. So, if the police is getting told this, right, that Mary's not only throttled 1, 2, 3 girls, and she's hurt a young boy, then surely to God, as a police officer, you're saying to yourself, wait now, there's something not quite right here about that girl. But then it comes down to police and no wanting to do anything. Hey, Darren,
Hey, Chanel.
they would have been like, well, it's just children being children. Sad reality back then. They notified the local authorities of the incidents and Mary's violent behaviour, but due to their age, both girls were simply given a warning and no further actions were taken, which is atrocious, because if they know that obviously she's done this, come on. It gives you early warning.
That's like a red flag at this point. And, you know, when you see that kind of behavior, that's like, even, it doesn't matter how old the kid is, that's when you need to be nervous, because that means that she's displaying psychopathic tendencies. And this I wanted to share what Steve just said. Holy cow.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me, Steve. That doesn't, because this is what pisses me off, and I'm sorry if I get your rant. John Venables, no offence to Robert Thompson, because he's, I suppose in a way, he's not been back in the light since he's been let out, right? But the thing is, they walked out of prison with 2 new identities. Could have had a different life. Nobody would have been any wiser who they were.
Try to get a job, like who's going to hire them, who's going to trust them, or try to get a good apartment building.
But this is the fact, right? I'll use Wayne and Nick as an example because they're guys, right?
Thanks.
So Wayne and Nick, for example, I'm not going to use the same sort of story, but I'll make up one in my head. Wayne and Nick rob a bank and they kill two elderly people, right? And I'll say Wayne, right? So Wayne hates old people and says, fuck this, I'm going to pump 2 of them off, right? So they're kids, so they get you identities. So Nick learns his lesson. Wayne says, fuck this, I hate all the old dears, and goes into a nursing home and blows them all up, right? I'm just using this as prime example.
I love the reaction of Wayne's face.
Please, MD, watching this show, this is just a fucking theory. Please don't think that Wayne hates old dears. Right, so the main thing becomes cocky because he's done one crime, got a UID, and he thinks, fuck this. I'm untouchable, so I can see what Steve's saying. Venables will think he's untouchable, but there's people who will probably know who he is for prison.
That's the
I
thing.
was going to say, it's not just that though, because if he starts getting cocky and thinks he's untouchable, like Steve says, if he takes that same attitude when he gets released,
Yep.
eventually he could, I don't know, for instance, get himself drunk.
Yep.
It's like sodium pentothal. You get
Exactly.
someone drunk and he could let it slip. And if he lets it slip, he's going to be in a whole lot of trouble and he won't be untouchable then.
Much more severe
Yeah.
than previously, because it's like,
Yeah.
this was one of those things that, like where they often will tell you, if you did something wrong in the past, your past may not affect you,
Mhm.
but your past can certainly come back to haunt you very quickly if
Yeah.
you make another mistake. And that's one of the things and that's why also, if you reoffend again, even if it's considered a small, like a little offense or so, it could be a major one, because you see in a lot of cases, a lot of inmates out there who are now spending the rest of their lives in prison. You got people out there who are being denied parole, not only because of what they did. Why also? It's because of their juvenile record. So that shows that.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go on. I wanted to show this anyway.
Chanel said she may have been released after just a few years. I highly doubt it's been rainbow and lollipop. She's had to live every day knowing. I'm going to say something.
With someone with psychopathic tendencies, she won't have to live every day knowing, because somebody with that diagnosis couldn't care less.
It's like having no
emotion to what they've done.
So what I would say to that comment is, yes, it may not be, rainbow and lollipops, but has she generally remorse? Does she realise what her actions is?
And
does she live every day knowing?
Well, and even with some people with those psychopathic, narcissistic tendency behavior, a few of them sometimes will show remorse, because they might, after many years, they start processing in their minds, and they start, something may have, I can't say for sure, but sometimes there's always going to be that one day that comes up where they're like, oh my God, what on earth what have I done? I can't believe I did this back then. So it does eventually get to them in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes they just refuse to show it sometimes.
I know, Eric. I use these poor boys for everything. You're going to make Wayne cry. It's not the very first time.
Now,
it was Crazy Boston. Not only did she neglect her daughter, but she also attempted to kill her on several occasions. During one instance, Betty accidentally threw her daughter out the window. Falling out of the window damaged Mary's prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain that caused both of them. Could this lack of judgment have led to the first?
I didn't even think of that.
To be fair,
this is the thing, you see, because of Mary's history and the things that were done to Mary, this has brought all of these things out. And the problem then is when, if someone, say like a school teacher, spots these things and mentions it to a mother that really couldn't care less, the teacher turns around to her and says, look, we've noticed that Mary managed to grab hold of a cat in the school play yard and hung it up by its tail and just stood there laughing at it while all the other kids were screaming. The mother could have turned around and gone, oh, well, yeah, well, never mind, and just not done anything about it. So, and I will not defend her in any way, shape or form, because she did what she did regardless.
Yeah.
But that could have been the reason behind why she became what she did.
And I definitely do agree with what Cliff said too, because like I said, as bad as Mary was, just like what Cliff said, I think her mom was also a special breed of monster, because she kind of was the one that, again, same thing. I'm not claiming all responsibility, for her doing such a thing, but she she definitely did play a role in part of it, considering, throwing her out of the window. So, it's just like, and I hear this a lot from a lot of crime shows. If she really didn't want Mary to begin with, she could have contacted, I know over here in the United States, hey Kelly, I know in the United States here it's called Child Protective Services. Best thing she could have done was, call CPS and put her up for adoption, and that would be the end of it. But she didn't do that. She could have contacted her parents or other family members to take care of it, but she
Yeah.
decided to go the wrong direction. And I think, again, part of it is what caused Mary to become this horrible killer. So
But
I definitely believe. Go ahead, Wayne. Go ahead.
If you look into the system, she's obviously. Obviously, she only ended up being sentenced for manslaughter rather than murder because it was
Right.
diminished responsibility because of the illness.
Right.
So she only served 12 of the possible 25, 50 technically, because it was 2 murders. So 25 years each. If she was to run them consecutively, then she would have had to have 50 years in jail. So she would have come out sort of near enough a pensioner anyway. Her life would have been practically ruined by then. But because of the diminished responsibility, she only served 12 years instead of the potential. She comes out literally at 1980, at the age of 23. She's still got a lot of her life ahead of her, and
Yeah.
she is able to start a family. Now, if she's able to start a family, something must have happened while she was in jail for them to deem her safe to be able to commit to a family life. They would have been watching her like a hawk.
Yeah,
But
They-
she's managed to have a family as a result.
But apparently, right, this is the thing. This is where everybody's going to be shocked. She was also granted a new identity to
Yes.
start helping to start a new life. She wants to. That was her wish, was to live a normal life and to be left alone. And it was only 4 years after her release for custody that she did give birth to a daughter. This would prove to be her only child. Her daughter actually knew nothing about who she was and what she'd done until 1998 when she was approached by reporters who
Yeah.
discovered that Belle's then current location,
30th anniversary, not to mention, considering it was
Uh-huh.
1998.
where both had been living for approximately 18 months. Now, to approach a 14-year-old daughter, our 14-year-old daughter, right? This is the thing, right? Criminals like that, I'll use Mary Bell as an example. That's not that wee lassie's fault. She didn't do nothing. It was her mother. And this is what pisses me off about reporters. Reporters are targeting 14-year-old lassie, hounding about who her mum is. Now, could you imagine being 14 and somebody comes up to you and says, "What can you tell me about your mother and her being a killer and everything?" That's going to fuck her right up.
Yeah. Oh my God. And it doesn't even have to be a question. They would just come up to you and say, "You know what your mother did 30 years ago, right? You know your mother's a murderer. She killed 2 kids." And for a kid to process that, I mean, it would even be hard for a kid to really process that in their head, like, because they would first try to deny it outright, like, no, that's not possible. Because they might first think they're just saying, oh, they're just joking, they're not telling me the truth. But once you start looking up, especially in newspapers or as the years had gone on, checking it online, you start realizing that those facts, what everybody's been telling you about is true, and it's got to just wreck your entire life. Like even if please remember this was the 1960s, and social services probably wasn't the done thing. You were made to have your baby in those days by families, and abortion wasn't legal. Well, Carrie does have a point, because again, I'm not really sure, when exactly how it all started back in the 60s, whether back in the US or in the UK. So, but I was going to say, even in the case with Mary Bell's daughter, because it sounds like she had a far better upbringing, certainly did not possess or inherit her mother's, psychopathic tendencies. The fact that she has to now live with knowing that her mom's a murderer, knowing that this is going to be haunting her family, eventually family tree, it's got to be heartbreaking for her.
Yeah, I mean, they're saying, right, The right to anonymity grants to Bell's daughter following her birth was originally only extended until she'd reached the age of 18. However, on 21st of May 2003, Bell won a High Court battle to have her own anonymity and that of her daughters extended for life. And this was actually approved,
Yes.
so she could walk among any's. And it's been later updated to include Bell's granddaughter, whose granddaughter's the same age as my son.
Oh, really?
The,
I didn't know he was.
the
I didn't
order
even know.
also,
I didn't even know he was that old already. I remember a few years ago when they said when she recently became a grandmother.
the order also prohibits the aspects of her granddaughter. This is the thing. I agree with it because in the sense of that gives her daughter and the granddaughter, that immunity to have a life, because you can imagine the shock of a 14-year-old. Now, she wouldn't want her 14-year-old daughter, this is the daughter to the granddaughter, to know. So, fair play that the fact that they've actually gave them immunity for life, because it's not a nice thing to hear. Especially, I'm not saying that Mary wasn't planning on telling her daughter, but to hear it full frontal from a member, and I'm not saying this disrespectfully against the victims' families. You can't ever replace or go back and change what's happened. I mean, the first victim was Martin Brown, and he was 4 years old, and just, I think it was days before her 11th birthday, she
Yes.
strangled him. Brown's body was discovered by 3 children. Now, that's emotionally scarring for those children. Approximately at 3:30, he was laying on his back with his arm stretched above his head. Apart from the specks of blood and the foam around his mouth, no signs of violence were visible upon his body. A local workman, who I won't name, soon arrived on the scene, and he attempted CPR, which didn't help because the boy was already dead. As Hall attempted CPR, 2 local girls, which was obviously Mary and Norma, appeared at the doorway to the bedroom. They were shooed by 2, both were quickly shooed outside the house. They knocked on the victim's door, aunt's door, and informed her, one of your sisters, Bairns, has just had an accident. Bairns, for MD that doesn't know, is a Scottish word for children. Has just had an accident. We think it's Martin. We can't tell because there's blood all over him. When the post-mortem was done upon his body, they were unable to find any signs of violence to the children's body. Though he was able to discount the investigation theory the children had died of poisoning, she had wrote a letter. Well, not a letter, it was a handwritten note by me. I can't make out really what it says. But it's really, really horrible that they did that.
I murder so that I may come back.
And it's just, it's one of those ones. I mean, staff discovered a break-in at, I think it was a nursery. It was a nursery. And one of the notes that she left was, I murder so that I make... Another read, we did murder Martin Brown. Fuck off, you bastard. A third note simply read, fuck off. Well, she's tried to spell fuck off, but Wayne's have been Wayne's. It's amazing men nowadays can spell it. Fuck off, we murder, watch out, Fanny and faggot. Please don't to get offensive offensed by me using the word faggot, because that's exactly what I'm reading, is the way it's wrote. The final note was the most complex reading. You are mice. Why? Because we murdered Martin Go Brown. You better look out there are murders and by Fanny, faggot. You screws. The police dismissed. This is the best of it. The police dismissed this incident as tasteless and childish prank. Now you've got a full murder confession written and they're dismissing it, which is horrible. 2 days later, shortly before the funeral, Martin Brown, in a game of chicken, both girls called upon the house of his mother June, asking to see Martin. When June replied that they couldn't see their son because he was deceased, oh my God, Mary replied, "Oh, I know he's dead. I want to see him in his coffin."
Yeah, I remember hearing about that too when he went to go visit. She went to go visit him in his coffin, and that was just messed up. I mean, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mary hopefully got help when she was in prison. Okay, now this, what Chanel just wrote. Holy cow.
My mother's a narcissist person who left me to die after a stroke. Stole my autistic son, told him I was dead, and just got past weekend I went to see her on her deathbed. She claims she didn't remember doing it to me. So should I just leave her to come back into my life? Or just leave her die not knowing the truth?
That's a hard question to answer.
I really want to answer this, but I really don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really difficult. I mean, I get what she's asking. I just that I would answer it. I just don't know exactly if whatever I give would be exactly the right answer. Honestly, it's really hard.
Can I ask Chanel? Do you speak or do you have contact with your son? Does your son know who you are now? Or did he believe what your mum had told him, and you never got contact with him again?
Mm-hmm.
See, I actually had the opportunity. See, I actually met Chanel a few years back at one of the Paracons, so I know exactly who she is. But this is the first time I've heard about this. She lives just a state away from me, up in Wisconsin. So, but up until now, I never knew anything about this.
Yeah.
But of course, part of it was just recently, since she said it was just the past weekend she went to see her on her deathbed. So it's
like you say, it's very difficult to answer that question. That's why I said, does she still get contact with her? Does her son actually still know now who she is, or has the lie been continued? I've got friends who are brought up by his grandparents, but he calls them his mum and dad because they brought him up because his mum didn't want to know. And his mum was then labelled his sister. So he was brought up as a child believing that what was his sister, what was his mother was actually his sister, and his parents were actually his grandparents.
Right.
So it wasn't until later on in life, when he was an adult and he was working for a living and he was going out and doing his own thing, that the truth came out that his sister was actually his mum and his mum and dad were actually his grandparents. But it was because his mum couldn't handle having a child, so his nan and granddad took over and they became his parents. And it's difficult. I mean, if he does know who Chanel is now, then the past is the past.
Yeah.
I've had a rough background with my real father.
My son did believe his grandma. I got him back, and it's been very hard for him. He refused to see grandma. She's in my room. The thing is, right? I'm going to answer this with personal experience, right? Oh wow, right. The thing about it is, right, you can let them back into your life, but it's never ever going to be the same. And I'm talking for personal experience, Chanel, right? So this is me opening up a bit. right? And you can let them back into your life and you can try to forgive and forget, but the problem is it's hard and it will never ever be the same, right? And if you're looking for answers, what you've got to bear in the back of your mind is you maybe never get the answers that you want, and some things are best left at peace. And what I suggest you can try and do, Chanel, is maybe write down everything that you feel or the questions that you have. Put it in an envelope. Go outside. Make sure it's somewhere obviously not too public. And burn it. And that, because, right, without sounding too personal, is that I've got abandonment issues, right? And I would love to know why I wasn't good enough. But at the same time, I'm never going to get the answers. So I'm going to have to basically, you can't miss something that was never there.
Yeah.
Right.
And I've made peace with that fact. And what I do now is I generate all my love into my Wayne. So best bet is just don't do the same mistakes with your child as what your mother did with you. And I hope that helps. I hope I'm
Yeah.
not getting too personal.
No,
Yeah,
I mean,
hopefully.
I just before you came back on again, I was just explaining myself that up until I was about 5-6 years old, my real dad lived with us here, and he was a nasty bit of work. When I was 1 year old, he tripped me over and broke my nose. For it was funny. I was the brunt of his anger. I caught everything. It was never my mum, never my sister. It was always me. I was always kept locked in my bedroom out of the way. So I was literally, I wasn't wanted. And technically I wasn't. Technically I was, in theory, I had a sister before. There's me and my older sister, and there would have been a sister before her. And unfortunately she died as a baby. So I was sort of, I can be grateful for it. I'm an afterthought. I wasn't really sort of planned as such. However, I'll never take that away from my mum, bless her, because she was the one that looked after us. And when she met my stepdad, who I now will always class as my real dad, I love him as he's my real dad. But when I met my ex-wife and we had our first child, Ethan, I was walking back from her mum and dad's to our house, and my real dad cycled past, and he went. I literally shouted after him, said hello, Dad, and he just ignored me. So I shouted,
geez.
and he then stopped, and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to have some fun here. So I started talking to him, and then I went, Dad, this is your grandson, Ethan. And he went, oh, for God's sake, don't say that. And I went, oh, your grandson. And he went, no. He says, I can't be having none of that. I went, how dare you?
Yeah, I would have done the same thing.
Biological grandson, regardless of whether you want to know him or not, he is your grandson. And he went, oh, no. He said, I can't have that. So I deliberately changed the subject, and I took as long as I could talking to him, because I knew he had fish and chips in his backpack. And it meant he would have to get home and put them in the microwave. From that moment onwards, I washed my hands of him. He is not my father, as far as I'm concerned. After, do what he did to me, I couldn't care less. Up until that point, I went out of my way to go and see him on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. I would go out on day trips with him and my two half sisters and my stepmom. I did the best I could, because as far as I was concerned, no matter what he did, he was still biologically my father.
Right,
but
right.
He said what he said to my son. I'm like, nah, That's it. I want nothing to do with you. And every once in a while when I did see him, he would always be talking about what he's doing, what his two girls are doing. It was never asking how I'm getting on and how my family is. So now I don't see him at all. I don't talk to him. I don't see him, nothing. But that's my choice. I still know him as my father, and he'll always be known as my father. But my real father is now living in Corfu with my mum.
Mm-hmm.
And
do you know what? I always joke.
However, I look at it that the past is the past. Whatever he did then has no reflection on now.
Right.
Because in a sense, the things he did to me in the past has helped shape me to what I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Completely deluded and nuts. But, you know, so I can't change the past.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a thing that obviously Chanel would look at, is that you can't change what's happened in the past. If we all had a time machine and could go back and alter things so that these things couldn't happen, it would be an amazing thing to be able to do. But unfortunately, we can't. So as a mum's on a deathbed, there isn't much else you can do. And unfortunately, I would be saying to myself, well, she's on a deathbed and she's asked to see you. Try not to talk about the subject, because you're still going to be there to pick up the pieces when she's gone. And your son is still there regardless.
Oh, my family lunch is evil, and
she will, Chanel. And then you'll be able to continue with your life. I know so much of your life is missing because of what has happened, but that will not stop you now from continuing where you left off and able to have that life that you didn't get.
Exactly.
Kerry says, I made a family decision over 6 years ago, and it was the best decision I made. And I don't ever think I'm good enough or my kids good enough anywhere, because we are definitely. Cliff says, my dad used to beat me, oh my God, and the siblings. But when asked when he was older, he denied it. Since then, I've forgiven him. He was young and came from a hard family who lived near the docks. In the old days, it was norm. Kerry says, the only time, if I'm honest, I saw them, if they wanted stuff and money. The end doesn't make it, but your parents...
Chanel makes a good point.
Hey, Louise! How you doing? Christine says, some people are just blockheads when seeding. They just can't cope with change, if any kind, won't change their ways for anyone. They just have a bottom. See, the thing about it is, no what I always do in my way for years, I've always quit, dealt with my traumas in life by my humour. And one of the things I'll always say to my mum is where is my real parents? I says, I want to go searching for them. I bet they've left me. They're away travelling the world and they've left me with you. I joke about being adopted, and I'll say to you jokingly, and it's terrible, and if my dad ever seen this, he would kick me right up the arse. But I always joke and say, well, who's my father? No, that I've not said this to my dad before, by the way, I have. But I'll say to him, who's my father? I says, you can't be my father. And I always crack that joke because I'm tall. My mum and dad. So I'll always say, who's my father? And things like that. And I'll joke and I'll say to my sister-in-law, like, they're not my parents. My parents are somewhere halfway across the world. Now, that would be hilarious if I ever done that ancestry and discovered that they weren't my parents. I don't know how I feel about that. But I've always said that if it did ever come back, right, so they weren't my parents, I'd be more upset about my granny and papas than I would about my mum and dad. And I laugh and joke about it, but I use my humour, and a lot of it is that I've created myself with so much humour that I've actually not dealt with the root cause of the problem, because I just hide everything with my humour. And it's great when we have conversations like that. And I'm sorry if I've been too personal with everybody tonight on the live when I talk about my life. But it's great that we all can have these conversations, and I suppose in these podcasts we're like a family anyway. And when I look at you guys, like, as much as me and Nick joke about North Carolina, he's my brother for another mother. As much as I say that Mrs. Millie's my mother-in-law and everything, I don't think she would be too opening arms with me being the daughter-in-law. So I'll just stick to the sister for another will, okay, what I mean? Thanks very much, Kerry. But yeah, you know, as Chanel says, it's not about DNA. You know, it doesn't make you a parent. It's I find
that's kind of basically what I would say. Kind of, I guess in some way, shape, or form, that kind of goes back a little bit what we're talking about with Mary Bell. Is that just because she had, you know, she killed two kids, you know, just because that she killed people, you know, she may have been a murderer, and her daughter and granddaughter, you know, hey, what's up, kid? Good to see you. You know, her daughter and granddaughter, you know, may have that same DNA within her, but that doesn't mean that they're bad people themselves. They're just related, you know. So, you know, and I think in some way, because it's also kind of appropriate with the fact that she gave them an enemy to keep them protected. It was almost like as if Mary was basically saying, I'm well aware of what I've done. I screwed up my life. I did something absolutely terrible. In fact, she probably would even say, I shouldn't even be out in society right now. But that doesn't mean that my daughter and my granddaughter have to live through that same life. They may inherit my genes, but they're not exactly the same person. They're just like, you know, she has admitted, you know, what she's done.
I mean, technically, as far as anybody's concerned, both Mary's daughter and granddaughter are innocent people.
They are. Exactly.
And they should not be made to punish for something that somebody else did.
Definitely. And
whether it's the mother or not.
And if anything, no, we should do is next week's subject. We should do a nature or nurture debate. It's an interesting debate, is a nature and nurture. Because
I thought we'd be talking about a Snickers bar then. I thought, nurture, what?
Well, in that case, then we could talk about
Snickers. Full of nuts.
Or we could be the nature nurture debate sponsored by Snickers. But that is a really interesting debate. And I suppose, really, see if you look at it, we probably use it in everyday life. When we're people watching.
I mean, the thing is I always said that, you know, regardless of what my dad did, he's still my dad. And that will be the case until he dies. I hate him for what he's done, and I hate him for what he said about my son. But he is still my dad. You know, he boasts about what he's got and what his daughters are doing. And I even got told that my youngest half sister unfriended me on Facebook because she won something like £350,000 on the lottery, and they told her that I'd come begging for money. And I'm like, are you serious? She hasn't got enough to warrant that. And I wouldn't even go to her and ask for a £5. You know, I don't need anybody's money. Well, if anything, my dad owes, would have been about 10 years worth of child support.
Wow.
Because he didn't pay child maintenance, and he managed to get away with not paying it for 10 years.
Hey, Irene.
Hello, Irene.
So,
good morning.
Hi, Irene. So I couldn't care less what he does now. As far as I'm concerned, he's not my dad. My dad lives in Corfu with my mum. And hopefully I'll get to see him again at Christmas. Yes.
In that case, can your dad be my dad?
He's got me.
We'll be sister and brother. Another mother.
Yeah. So, but you know, I was prepared up until the point when he said what he said about my son. You know, I was prepared to let bygones be bygones and forget anything that he'd done because he was still my dad. But when he upset me with what he said about Ethan, I'm just like, nah. You can say what you like about me, but you don't say things like that in front of my son, your grandson, and that was it. So I just walk away from it. You know, I could very easily go up and knock on his front door and go, "All right, Dad, how you doing?" No, because I can't just walk up to my dad's front door because he's 1,700 miles away. He's living in Corfu. I couldn't just do that on, you know, all of a sudden just go, "Oh, do you know what? I'll go and see my old man," and go off over to Corfu and say hello. Dad, shall we go out for a beer? Can't do that.
Sorry, exactly. I'm just in my hair like people's.
Ellen's just said to me, she said, "You've never even shown me your dad in public." I wouldn't have done.
You've said to
I
me,
would have walked straight past him. We could have walked straight past him. I'd have never have pointed him out.
You've said to me, like, when we've got home, it was ages ago that you saw your dad, and I'm like, why didn't you? Like, I would never introduce you to that arsehole.
I actually thought that said sweet, but there I was like, Irene, are you looking at Wayne's house? When there was someone be picking at your butt and you're too sweet to have this done to you. I think Irene's been. You've been flashing your ass at Irene again. Don't you do that? You'll give that woman a heart attack.
Irene's been looking at my OnlyFans page again. I have been told I have a nice small bottom.
Well, that picture that you put up with you standing either side of the legs of the stairs, well, I must admit, when that was on the OnlyFans and all. No, I've been looking.
That was the parapet in the middle of Castle Sedon. I was redecorating that whole area, and I've still got to redo it. I've got to put some gold lines in. And the problem was the only ladder I'd got is about 70 years old, and I didn't trust it. And it's all metal, so it is quite sturdy. But because of its age, I weren't too sure about whether to trust it or not.
I
so
can't.
In the end, I just propped myself up on the sides.
Irene, I can't let him show you his arse just now. But see if you go on his OnlyFans in about half an hour, you'll see it. I promise.
No, you won't find me on OnlyFans.
It's all right. Don't worry about it. Tell the truth, you and Mark Manley are on that OnlyFans. I've seen yous, or lookalikes.
I'll be lookalikes. Do you know what? I only knew about OnlyFans about 3 or 4 years ago.
What was that? Was that an accidental? I'll press this button and see where it leads me.
No, it was because I was told somebody in Ellen's family had been on OnlyFans, and it was just pictures of their feet.
Dirty bitch.
Feet.
Yeah. So, well, because on OnlyFans, it's for things. It's not just pornographic stuff. It's also fetish. So it's anybody that have a thing about feet or something like that. So apparently she was selling pictures of her feet on this fetish side of
wow.
And so of course it's been from that. No. But we know of someone on TikTok. She comes up on TikTok a lot, and she does a lot of the naughtier side of stuff on OnlyFans, and she posts about it on TikTok.
Oh my god!
We actually saw her in Blackpool one year. And
man!
So what's her face from TikTok on OnlyFans? And we're like, oh my word, no!
It's all right. I've just been informed that somebody wants to sell those feet on OnlyFans.
But the thing is, she's made a living from it. She owns a few houses, and that's all she does is just that.
By the way, I could sell my feet because I've got a size 10.5. So whoever likes feet will be shocked that I've got big feet.
I could sell my feet quite easily. And it would
This is
be
why-
talking about.
it would be scientific. It would be to scientific research because they'll want to know how the hell my feet got like they did.
By the way,
They'll be like,
that is what I love about these shows. We start off with Mary Bell, good intentions. I think now we're talking about OnlyFans and selling their fucking feet. What a show! What a show! I know I will send Wayne a tea-back underwear with an elephant front and let him pose. Oh my fucking god! The show's take a tumble.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do we get in this conversation?
keep your eyes out for 2024 Wayne Seaton calendar.
I've seen those. They're great,
Drug
funny to
pairs.
see. If you sell your feet, you can walk. Kerry really loves the show. And hi, amazing people. Good has. My name is Levi. I can't pronounce his second name. From LA.
From LA.
Yep.
He's from Law.
But oh my god, that show, we've went for good intentions to selling feet. Imagine, like, I would love to sell my feet, but if that makes that sort of money, I'll be on that OnlyFans tonight selling my feet. So I wouldn't want to go in because my eyes would be like this.
The thing is, when you look at it, seriously, you can make a lot of money from the simplest of things. You look at the amount of money people make from YouTube, just doing YouTube videos. People make lots of money from doing TikTok videos.
It's been done very fast, I
mean, I personally would love to get to 1,000 viewers on TikTok just so I can make more silly videos.
We'll sell your feet or your elephant.
That's
or
not going to get
monkey.
me 1,000 viewers on TikTok.
It might, but it just might not be the ones that you like.
It might get people sending me foot packs or even
I'll
foot spa.
tell you what. I'll tell you what. I'll take a picture of my feet and I'll send it to you guys, and you just tell me how much my feet's worth.
Got to change the subject for a minute. The guy in the lighthouse is calling me. Hang on a minute. Yeah, what do you want? Upstairs in the fridge. Sorry, he's being a bit of a pain.
Oh heck, Wayne, I'm your best friend on TikTok. But I just want to thank you guys and thanks everybody for the support as usual. It means a lot. Join us next week as we will be doing nature nurture debate. It will be a really good, interesting one. Tomorrow I have the Dark Phoenix. It is the Dark Phoenix Paranormal. Fuck's sake, Lou. Dark Phoenix Paranormal on the show. I know, get it out. But yeah, it's just because we've been talking about selling feet. That's all I can think of it.
You're going to be dreaming of feet now all night.
Listen, I'll be coming to haunt you and Mr. Manley on Monday. I'll be saying.
Out of the possible 1,000 dreams a human brain dreams every night, most of them are going to have a foot in somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh,
You're gonna be
yeah.
You know what? If you kind of think of it this way, that's why you got to get your foot in the door.
And if you're like me and you get lucid dreams, then write them down afterwards and then pass them to me, and I can make a scoop out of them.
Well, see any lucid dreams I have, I will be tap in your inbox.
We don't want to know about your lucid dreams. Actually, no, forget that. We'll kill you with them lucid dreams.
Sometimes it's no best to be in my brain. Cliff said it was a good chat about Mary Bell. We found out why she may have done it. A lesson learned on how a monster kill was created through her childhood. Thanks very much, Cliff. Good night, Sarah Louise. I hope you're okay. Home good as people that are and police officers. Christine, you get that boss. I'll be phoning her to tell you to let you off on a Thursday and a Friday. Louise is putting up her Halloween decks. I only watch very frightening Japanese paranormal videos from Buddhist monks on TikTok. It's frightening as hell. That's not so good. On Monday, you have the two good-looking men for the Dark Mirror. What are you talking about on Monday, apart from feet?
I think we're doing another top 5. I can't remember. We found a nice little website that actually does a top 5 of weird things. So over the last couple of weeks, we've been doing 10 weird creatures from the or myths from the Appalachians. So we covered things like the Bell Witch.
Bell Witch.
I can't remember what they call it, the Snallygaster or something.
Snallygaster, yep.
So we were talking about things like that over the last couple of weeks, and now we've finished that list. We want to go on to another one that's going to be just as weird and interesting. So, but as always, like tonight's show, we started talking about the list, and we end up getting sidetracked, and you never know, we might end up talking about hairy toes.
Well, hairy toes and hairy bums, that'll be the highlight of the show. Wayne, Nick, what's your show for Nick Files next week?
So I actually had to it's going to be a rescheduled episode. I was supposed to do Nick Files last night. However, I was unable to because I couldn't get the slideshow completed in time. What I was going to be talking about last night, and this is what it's going to be for next week is, and believe it or not, I mean, because again, I've been, well, as you guys know, I've made a transition and change with the show from going from haunted historical locations and events to cryptids. And the one that I was going, as I probably said before, originally I was going to start off with just cryptids from throughout the state of Illinois. I'm still doing that, but this next cryptid has not only just been seen in Illinois, it's been seen throughout the country as well as even parts of the world, including the UK, which I'm going to be, hopefully, I was actually working a little bit on it when you were talking, Mary, believe it or not, because I'm just trying to find any time necessary to finish it up. But what I'm going to be talking about, this might be something.
I know what it is. Can I put my hand up? Oh, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it the Bigfoot?
No, it's not, but it's.
You've just gone back to feet again.
I knew you were going to say that. No, what I'm actually going to be talking about, this might be something you guys may have heard of before. It's what's known as Phantom Panthers or Alien Big Cats or ABCs. I know, in fact, I got different slides for like different areas they've been seen, including the UK. So I was supposed to cover that this week, but again, there was so much information that I just could not get the slideshow completed. So that has now been rescheduled to next week instead.
Yeah, they've been seen in Colchester. No pointing any fingers, elbows, noses.
Oi, keep my nose out of it.
Oh my God. This is why I love having my boys on. Definitely. But everybody have a good week. If I don't catch you tomorrow night, hopefully catch you next week. But definitely, how did you get that picture? I'll pay you 50 quid if you take it down.
I've got to finish that. It's my diamond painting.
That's like my twin. Do you know where my parents are?
And you know, I just thought real quick too, just before we get off, although we got a subject for next week's episode, I can give you another one for a future episode. This might be something you guys might like. Right,
you've got 2 weeks in advance, folks. So next week, Nature Nurture, the week after.
I didn't even tell you what it was yet. That new feet crime would sound really interesting.
Nick, you're an asshole. I thought you had an asshole.
And then we could, and then the week after we could just do body parts.
That looks like my in-laws. Are you my mum? You know.
Doctor.
I don't know why I've got into the Nun for some reason, and I've watched both the films now. I was disappointed with the second one, but the first one I love. It's brilliant. So.
Do you know what I did get into? And I don't like clown films, as everybody knows. I don't like them because I just don't think they're
Jeremy's the
scary.
opposite.
I really, I've really got into that Terrifier. It was just a shame they only made 2 of them.
Terrifier, yeah.
Sorry, they made me laugh. I thought they were funny.
It's like maybe he's my dad.
They're funny.
Hello, I would take pictures of my cakes and cookies. That could be read in so many ways, Irene, but I just send me a picture of your cakes and cookies.
I just got what you meant.
Oh.
Lois, we're going back to OnlyFans again, aren't we? You know, full circle and all that.
Wait now to phone my lawyer. But definitely no, I didn't definitely send me them, love, but we will speak to you all soon. Take care of yourselves, everyone, and have a good night.